Wow. Just wow. I can't believe what just happened. Shedeur Sanders fell out of the first round. I'm thinking, okay, he's probably going to go in the second or third round. Falls out of the second round. Falls out of the third round. Now I'm like, okay, is he even going to get drafted at this point? Falls out of the fourth round. I'm like, this kid is not even going to get drafted. What has happened? And the Browns, who already took a quarterback 2 rounds before, take Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. So they take Dillon Gabriel before Shedeur Sanders, then they go ahead and they take Shedeur Sanders. I mean, this whole draft, this was actually a pretty weak draft going into it as far as talent, top 100 talent. I heard there was about maybe 20, maybe less first-round grades on players in this draft. And Shedeur was one of them. If he wasn't one of them, he was a high-end second-round prospect coming out of the draft. And in a passing league, where quarterbacks get drafted way higher than they used to, Mac Jones went 15th overall. Mac Jones went 15th overall. If Mac Jones went 15th overall, how did Shedeur Sanders fall to the 5th round? The 5th round! Way more. I mean, look, Shedeur doesn't have the upside of like Cam Ward, even Caleb, Jaden Daniels, even Michael Penix, but he was a good prospect coming out. He fell all the way to the 5th round. We're going to get into all of that, okay? We're going to hit on this entire draft and how Shedeur fell to where he fell. Now, people are saying that this happens every draft. There's a quarterback that falls in every draft. That's what the media analysts are saying. This is normal. It's fine. Relax. This happens. They like to relate this to Dan Marino. They like to relate this to Aaron Rodgers. But these guys fell, and they were still picked in the first round. Shedeur Sanders fell out of the first round, out of the second, out of the third, to the 5th round. There's only 7 rounds in the draft. He was drafted 5 out of 7 rounds. Top 20 prospect, drafted in the 5th round. I mean, it doesn't equate. It just did not equate. So people comparing him to Dan Marino, to Aaron Rodgers. This guy fell out of the first round. Dan Marino was drafted in the first round. Aaron Rodgers was drafted in the first round. This guy fell to the 5th round. I've never seen anything like this. Out of all the years, and like I've been watching maybe like 20 years. I'm 28 years old. I've been watching the NFL since 2005. I've been a devoted fan for 20 years. I have never seen such a wide gap between the media and fans and the actual NFL executives. I've never seen such a wide gap in what they think about a quarterback. And the fans, the media, the analysts thought that he was going to go in the first round. At worst, second round. I thought he was going to be a top 10 pick. The GMs and executives clearly thought otherwise because he wasn't picked in the first round. He wasn't picked in the second round. And then you're starting to think, okay, this is good value. Shedeur Sanders in the 3rd round. Falls out of the 3rd round. So like, at that point, it's like, what is even going on, man? What is happening? So this is the widest divide in what the media thinks versus what the actual executives think. So this just shows, I'm just going to start the show with this. This just shows that me, Colin Cowherd, my boy John Middlecoff, Stephen A. Smith, Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, Charles Davis, all those guys, we don't know shit. The media doesn't know anything because the executives and the GMs lie. Even the insiders lie. They'll give you false information, the leaks that you hear that's going on. It's all false information. We don't know what's going to happen in the draft. This happens every draft, and it just showed in this draft times 10 that the NFL executives lie, and that we believe it, we bite it up. Every draft board that I saw had Shedeur Sanders going in the top 2 rounds. Majority of them hadn't going top 10. Majority of them hadn't going at least 21 to Steelers. The guy fell. The Browns passed on him 6 times, drafted the quarterback and passed on him 6 times and finally picked him. So this is the biggest gap, biggest divide in opinion on one player that I've ever seen in my entire life. Executives versus the outside world, the people that don't see the film, that don't maybe watch the film but don't see the insiders' opinions, the executive opinions, don't watch the practice film, didn't talk to the guy, don't know about the character. So it's really crazy the divide between what I think and people that, because I remember I did my mock draft a couple weeks ago. And I had Shedeur Sanders going 2nd overall to the Browns. I was right; he went to the Browns. Just wasn't 2nd overall. Not a lot of people thought that he was going to go 2nd overall to the Browns. I understand. I was one of the few. I thought he was going to go in the top 10, definitely. But a lot of people thought like that. And I got my information based on top draft analysts in the NFL. Mel Kiper, who I don't really take too seriously. But Daniel Jeremiah, Charles Davis. There's people that I've took into Lance Zierlein. Like, there's people that have been doing this for years and years and years, and the average of them were saying Shedeur Sanders is going to go in the first round, latest second round. So, to me, even my video a couple weeks ago, I had people commenting that, oh, what are you, crazy? Shedeur Sanders falling out of the top 10? That's lunacy. This is what people were telling me in the comments of my own videos. So, the fact that he fell out of the first 3 rounds, people are saying, oh, no, I knew this was going to happen. If you're saying you knew that Shedeur Sanders was going to fall out of round 1, 2, and 3, you're full of shit. And I don't want to fucking talk to you about football because you're a liar. You are a liar. Anyone says that they know that Shedeur Sanders was going to fall out of the first 3 rounds of the draft in a weak NFL draft is full of shit. Anyone that thinks that Shedeur Sanders was always going to go behind Tyler Shough. Tyler Shough was drafted before Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to get into all this, but I'm just a little upset. Not really upset. I just feel bad for the guy. I really do, because I think he's a better prospect than Tyler Shough. I think he's a better Jalen Milroe, I understand. More upside. I won't even go there. He's a better prospect than Dillon Gabriel. You can't tell me that Shedeur Sanders is not as good, if not better, prospect than Dillon Gabriel. Okay? So, the Browns, we'll get into that in a little bit. I'm not even going to go there. Let's just start from the beginning, because obviously the Titans were going to draft Cam Ward. We all knew if you thought Shedeur Sanders was going to go to the Titans number 1 overall, you're an idiot. You're not paying attention. So we all knew that he wasn't going to go number 1. That's obvious. So you get to 2, Cleveland. Look, he ended up on Cleveland anyway. I get that. But number 2, I'm thinking he's going to go there. Well, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I think they're going to draft Shedeur. They trade out. They trade out of that pick. I'm like, oh, shit, this is on now. The Jaguars draft Travis Hunter. Maybe we'll talk about that in a later video, another day, because there's just too much shit to talk about with Shedeur Sanders here. Everyone knew the Titans were going to take Cam Ward. We all know that. Browns trade out, Jaguars select Travis Hunter. Okay, very shocking, but okay, let's move on. Shedeur's going to go in the top 10 still. New York Giants. I guess the Giants didn't think he was a franchise quarterback. They go with Abdul Carter to add with Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, elite D-line. Abdul Carter is the most sure thing in the draft. He's probably going to be a bona fide Pro Bowler, even if it's just one time. He's going to be a good starter in this league, Abdul Carter. So I can't even blame the Giants for that. You're like, okay, you don't think Shedeur Sanders is a top 3 pick? Understandable. I thought he was going to go in the top 3. I thought he was going to go in the top 10. But if you don't think he's a top 10 pick, I understand. I'm not going to hate on that. I even understand him going out of the first round, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The Raiders, next team. Well, the Browns take the defensive tackle Mason Graham. So clearly they were trading out, trying to shore up their D-line. Then you have Myles Garrett, Mason Graham. You have a very scary D-line. So, okay, no problem. You don't want Shedeur in the top 10. I get it. You don't think he's a top 10 player. Understandable. He's a good prospect. He's not a great prospect. I understand that. So far, totally understandable. At 6, the Raiders take Ashton Jeanty. I get that. Pete Carroll wants his next Marshawn Lynch. Maybe not that high in Shedeur, top 10. Totally understandable. The Jets, they go with a tackle, Armand Membu. And look, after what Aaron Glenn said to Aaron Rodgers, I get that. They don't want to deal with the headache with Shedeur Sanders. After that point, I knew the Jets were out on Shedeur. Second round came, they didn't pick him again. I just knew that the Jets had wanted no part of Shedeur Sanders and his dad. Aaron Glenn, new head coach, doesn't want to deal with a dad who could potentially replace him as head coach. So I get it. They were out. I kind of expected that. I really did. I thought the New Orleans Saints and number 9 was the best fit for him. Kellen Moore, offensive head coach. You got weapons. Olave, Shaheed, Kamara, Jawan Johnson. You have weapons on offense. Your defense is going to bounce back. Offensive head coach. I thought this was a great fit for him. So I thought if Shedeur fell to the Saints, this would be an easy pick for them. They pass. They pass on him. So now, at that point, after pick 9, I'm like, oh my God, he's falling all the way to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because from 9 to 21, there's a big gap in teams that need quarterbacks. From 9 to 21, you don't need a quarterback. I listed it a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to go through it again. But I knew after the Saints that he was going to fall all the way to the Steelers, which he did. And then I'm thinking, the Steelers, okay, Aaron Rodgers, you played too many games, man. The Steelers are going to select Shedeur Sanders. This is over. They don't. I thought it was a lock at that point. I really was shocked. I was completely shocked at that point. So maybe, look, they probably believe they're getting Rodgers. Maybe they have an underhand shake on a deal. At that point, they must because they drafted the quarterback in the 7th round, and they don't really have a plan other than Mason Rudolph. So clearly, Rodgers is probably going there. He probably told them something. The fact that they didn't take Shedeur in the first couple of rounds, I'm guessing they think they're getting Rodgers. So, okay, whatever, fine. Falls out of 21. So now I'm thinking, oh, the Rams at 26. That's interesting. Stafford. McVay's been trying to move off Stafford for years with the contract. He's been arguing. He moved off Goff before. So I'm thinking this is looking a little spicy here. Shedeur going to the Rams. The Giants trade up to pick 25. I'm like, oh my God, the Giants are going to take Shedeur here. They take Jaxson Dart over Shedeur Sanders. At first, initial reaction, I'm like, oh my God, how do you take Jaxson Dart over Shedeur Sanders? Shedeur's the better prospect. You know what? Jaxson Dart has the bigger arm. He's got better intangibles. He's just a better head on his shoulders, I would say, and a better arm and more upside than Shedeur. As a prospect, Jaxson Dart has more upside than Shedeur Sanders. So I get the Giants, Brian Daboll, trading up to take him at 25. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Shedeur is the better college player. I think Shedeur is still a better prospect than Jaxson Dart coming out of college. I think Shedeur is more of a sure thing for being a star in the NFL than Jaxson Dart. Jaxson Dart reminds me a lot of Zach Wilson. So that worries me. The big arm, the flashiness. It just reminds me a lot of Zach Wilson. He really does. But after hearing what I heard, I can see why Brian Daboll would prefer Jaxson Dart over Shedeur. Shedeur has had a private visit with Brian Daboll. Private visit. An install package came in. Shedeur wasn't prepared for it. This install package. Brian Daboll called him out on it. Shedeur didn't like that. Brian Daboll didn't appreciate that. Shedeur didn't like that. And at that point, I'm just assuming Brian Daboll was just completely out on Shedeur. It was, I think, the worst interview of all the interviews that Shedeur went on was the New York Giants and Brian Daboll. So it's actually very funny to think about that because Shedeur Sanders was caught in New York City throwing the ball around with Malik Neighbors. He had that story where he posted the post of the Giants cleats. And he just was so sure he was going to go there. And the Giants were so desperate for Shedeur Sanders, they trade up back to the first round and they draft another quarterback over you. That is very humbling if I'm Shedeur Sanders. You're throwing the ball around with the star receiver that just got drafted the year before, wants to play with you. You post the cleats with the Giants and you look like an idiot when they draft someone else, another quarterback, over you. I mean, it's a little embarrassing if I'm Shedeur Sanders. That's got to be humbling for sure. You're so certain that all these teams want you and you realize no one wants you. So it's kind of sad for sure. So an install package came in. Shedeur wasn't prepared for it, and Daboll called him out, and he just didn't like the way that Daboll finally called him out. I'm sure a lot of people don't call him out because they know his dad, and they don't want to get on bad terms with his dad. Daboll doesn't give a shit. He's a no-nonsense type dude. He does not give a shit. Kind of like Aaron Glenn, and he didn't like the way Shedeur acted. I'm pretty sure Jaxson Dart was probably a class act, yes sir, no sir. I mean, he wasn't as high of a prospect as Shedeur coming out, so he had to work for it a little bit with the intangibles. Shedeur thought he had it made. Deion Shedeur thought he had it made, and that's what happens. Now you have two quarterbacks at this point taking over you. So at this point, I'm like, wow, Jaxson Dart over Shedeur, you're crazy. You're crazy. The Rams, after that, the next pick, trade out of the first round. They're like, I don't want anything to do with this. So now first round goes by, Shedeur did not get picked in the first round. Most people thought he was going top 10, as myself, as many other people in my comments, and I guess no one was that high on Shedeur Sanders after all. Look, I still thought I'm going out Thursday. I'm like, okay. This is a little crazy. He did not get selected in the first round. A lot of rookie quarterbacks come out of the draft out of the first round. A lot of GMs and stuff are desperate in quarterbacks. Usually these quarterbacks, if there's even a glimpse of hope, they're taken in the first round, in the top 10. The fact that he fell out of the first round was a little surprising to me. It was, but that happens all the time. Even like a couple of years ago, Will Levis, who would turn out to be nothing, but it happens a lot where a quarterback falls out of the first round, falls to the second round, and it's happening less and less now. It's either first round talents or like end the draft, 6th, 7th round, but it's happened where a quarterback was a good prospect, not great, and fell to the second round. It's happened a lot. I thought he would be taken in the second or the third round. So you get into the second round. No quarterbacks taken. The Browns have passed them. The Browns have passed on him about 5 times at this point, okay? The Raiders passed on him twice. The Jets passed on him twice. I mean, multiple teams at this point have passed on him multiple times. Now I'm in the third round. I'm like, okay, he's probably going to get picked here, but like this is a little sketchy now. This is a little sketchy. Something's going on. Then, the beginning of the third round, the very beginning, maybe like the top 10 of the third round, the Saints take Tyler Shough. Tyler Shough, who's almost my age. The dude is almost my age. They take Tyler Shough, and he becomes the third quarterback taken in the draft. So Tyler Shough was taken before Shedeur Sanders. Okay, so Kellen Moore, who I thought was the best fit for Shedeur Sanders, the Saints, decided they wanted nothing to do with him the whole time. The whole time they wanted nothing to do with him. They took Tyler Shough over him in the 3rd round. So at this point, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Tyler Shough reminds me of Brandon Whedon all over again. Brandon Whedon was 28. He's 25. A little bit different there. But, like, 7 college seasons. It was like 6 or 7 college seasons. The dude is nearly my age. At that point, you're going to be playing well against 18, 19-year-olds who are barely developed. So, at that point, like, come on. Like, really, you're going to take Tyler Shough over Shedeur? Okay, whatever. Fine. I don't agree with it. Whatever. The Seahawks, later in that same round, take Jalen Milroe. I'm not high on Jalen Milroe. I don't think he's going to be an NFL quarterback. He reminds me of Anthony Richardson. Like, I just don't think he could like throw consistently from the pocket. I just don't think that's possible for him. But I do understand this one. Out of all the crazy picks before Shedeur, out of quarterback, I understand the Jalen Milroe pick. Why? The traits, man. The traits. Big arm, athletic. I heard if there's anyone faster than Lamar Jackson in the league, it's Jalen Milroe. So I get this pick. He has more upside. They're committed to Darnold. He's a quiet guy. He's going to come in and work as the backup. He's going to be a project for them, but he's going to work, keep his mouth shut, and try to get better. He's not a distraction. So I get that. He has more upside than Shedeur, bigger arm, more athletic, and he's going to keep his mouth shut. So I get that one. I really do. Seattle, Pete Carroll, maybe he reminds me more of a Russell Wilson, a project kind of. Russell was a better passer, more polished passer coming out of college. But I get this pick, the traits. You're going off the traits here. It's the 3rd round. And Shedeur is not a traits guy. I mean, he's accurate. He can throw on the run, but he's not Jalen Milroe as far as talent, like arm strength and mobility. So I get that one. I really do. The one I really don't get, the most confusing pick out of this entire draft, the Cleveland Browns taking Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round over Shedeur Sanders. The Cleveland Browns taking Dillon Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders in the 3rd round. Okay. What the hell is going on? At this point, I'm like, what the fuck? What the hell is going on? Dillon Gabriel, if you think Dillon Gabriel is a better prospect than Shedeur Sanders, you haven't been watching college, okay? Because Shedeur Sanders, he's more accurate. He's better playmaker on the move. Dillon Gabriel is mobile and everything, but Dillon Gabriel's the height. I mean, there's a lot. I wasn't crazy about that. Dillon Gabriel would have fell to the 5th round if he wasn't picked by the Browns in the 3rd round. So Kevin Stefanski and what's his name, Andrew Berry. I get it. You like Dillon Gabriel's I forgot the intangibles of Dillon Gabriel. I get it. You like the guy. You were rooting for the guy. He's got some talent, I guess. And you thought, okay, let's just take him in the 3rd round to shut our owner up so he doesn't keep going crazy over Shedeur. But then the 5th round comes, and you're like, this guy's still here. If I'm Jimmy Haslam, honestly, I'm feeling the same way. I'm not high in Dillon Gabriel. You have a guy, Shedeur, here, who I think is the 2nd best prospect in the draft in the 5th round. This is a weak draft. It's the 5th round. Half these guys are going to be free agents in a couple of years. Cut. I'm taking Shedeur Sanders there. I don't agree with the owner. I mean, he wanted Deshaun Watson. He wanted Johnny Manziel. Tons of crazy shit that this owner wanted. But in this situation, he was probably right. The fact that they went with Dillon Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders is like, it's almost malpractice at that point. You can't tell me that Dillon Gabriel is better than Shedeur Sanders. So at that point, if I'm the owner, you got to step in at some point and be like, guys, what the fuck are we doing here? What are we doing? And I feel like Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski did that to shut him up about Shedeur. They liked Dillon Gabriel a little bit. Probably would have taken him in the 4th or 5th round. Took him early, so Jimmy Haslam would be like, all right, we already have a quarterback. I'm not going to go crazy over Shedeur in the 5th round. But there he is in the 5th round, which probably Stefanski and Berry were not expecting. Probably like, he's going to be picked a few picks after Gabriel. Like, come on. Falls to the 5th round. At that point, you're like, if I'm Jimmy Haslam, I have to take him too. It's a 5th round pick in a weak draft. That's pretty much a flyer on the kid. Well, if he turns out to be a consistent starter, you have to make that pick. Like, I like Kevin Stefanski. He's a 2-time coach of the year. He made the playoffs with 4 quarterbacks, gave Joe Flacco, revived Joe Flacco's career. And he'll probably roll with Joe Flacco going into the beginning of the season. But if you're going to tell me that you think Dillon Gabriel is a better prospect than Shedeur Sanders, I don't trust you as GM, Andrew Berry. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. Because you can't tell me that. And I get the intangibles about it. Dillon Gabriel's probably a fucking great guy. But You have a guy in Shedeur Sanders who could sit behind Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's not your starter for the next 10 years, so who gives a fuck what Joe Flacco thinks? I know like most people don't want backups being high profile, but who gives a fuck? You are in the tank. You have Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. So now you have Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, and Deshaun Watson, who will be out for the season this year. So you got Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. Fuck Kenny Pickett. Who cares about Kenny Pickett? You shouldn't have even traded for Kenny Pickett. Why did you trade for Kenny Pickett? I don't know. You didn't have Flacco at the time. Obviously didn't have Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. So I guess you were desperate. But Kenny Pickett's going to go good. Bye-bye. Because Kenny Pickett is a terrible quarterback. He's going to be out of the league. I'm not even worried about Kenny Pickett. It's going to be between Flacco, Gabriel, and Shedeur. And my inclination is going to tell me Shedeur is going to beat out Dillon Gabriel easily. Because I watched the tape. I watched the film. Shedeur's a better player than Dillon Gabriel. I don't get that. I'm just very baffled that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry went with Dillon Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders. They like the guy, yes. I don't know. It really didn't make any sense. And like everyone's shitting on Jamie Haslam. It's the owner. Why would he make them make that pick? Dude, you have a guy who's the number 20 prospect in the entire draft in the 5th round. Great value, great bang for your buck. You're in quarterback hell. Dillon Gabriel has not much upside, and Joe Flacco's about to fucking be on the couch in a couple years. So, I get it. Jimmy Haslam, I'm sorry, I get it. And honestly, I don't know, because Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, I get it. I think a part of this, and no one's really hit on this, I think part of this, Kevin Stefanski, Brian Daboll, not really Pete Carroll, but even Aaron Glenn to some extent, they're scared Shedeur comes in the building with his personality and his, I'm just going to quote, sense of entitlement that some people have put out there, which I don't necessarily agree with, but people say he's a little entitled. Whatever, neither here nor there. But he's going to come in, he's going to complain. The first year doesn't go well. All of a sudden, you're out. Deion Sanders, his father's in. Especially Kevin Stefanski, who was 2-time Coach of the Year, Joe Flacco career year, 4 quarterbacks makes the playoff. He's probably sitting there like, Jimmy Haslam, this guy's not stable. One bad year, Shedeur complains. Am I getting fired for Deion Sanders? No one's talking about that. But the coaches and the GMs are probably worried that they're going to lose their job if things don't go well to Deion Sanders. So people don't talk about that. They talk about the prospect, the player, coaching him. What about if you lose your job to his dad? That's another thing that I don't think anyone's been hitting on. So big factor in all of this, in my opinion. So you have Shedeur, and I think Deion and Shedeur were way, way off on what they thought they were, what we thought they were, and what the actual executives thought Shedeur Sanders was as far as a prospect. And it's crazy because I guess Deion at the beginning of the process in the Super Bowl, around the time of the Super Bowl, was trying to pick where Shedeur was going to go. He's essentially trying to handpick it. And maybe Shedeur thought that the Giants and Browns interviews or whatever went really well. And the Raiders, too, went really well. So then maybe there were some interviews that he maybe, not my words, sandbagged. An NFL assistant coach on Shedeur Sanders. The worst formal interview I've ever been in my life. So entitled, takes unnecessary sacks, never plays on time, has horrible body language, blames teammates. The biggest thing is he's not that good. That guy seems like he has a little bit of a vendetta against Shedeur. That guy seems like he has an agenda because he's talking about he's entitled, then he goes back to his play, then he goes back to his personality, then he goes back to his play again. So it's just like, usually you do one thing, then you go to the next thing. If you're in a controlled mood, if you're in a crazy mood, you're like, he sucks, he's entitled, he doesn't play good, he's a bitch. It's just like, you just throwing random things out there. So I think that guy had a little bit of a vendetta against Shedeur. That's 2 reports, though, of Shedeur and his bad attitude. Are they both Giants reports? I don't know if that second report was the Giants, but we know about the Brian Daboll report, which he needed to confirm, no denied, so I won't even get into that. But now you have this report, too, with the assistant coach in the NFL on Shedeur. So biggest thing, he's not that good. I mean, he added that after shitting on him, but apparently 80% of that report was good. Most of the reports on Shedeur were positive, but this is one of the big negatives. Deion Sanders did not help, though. He didn't help. He wanted to get involved. You heard his other son, Shiloh, say, Deion was my agent, didn't work out. Got an agent, got a free agent, undrafted free agent tryout with the Tampa Bay Bucks. So maybe people didn't want to deal with Deion. He's a highly talented player in the league, one of the best corners of all time. I feel like if Shedeur was what people wanted, they would have taken him anyway. But the personality had to have turned him off to some extent because he was the second best prospect in this draft. At worst, third. If you want to put Jaxson Dart ahead of Shedeur, whatever, I get that. But he was at worst the third best prospect in this draft. And I'm guessing Deion didn't help during the Super Bowl period where he was pretty much handpicking that Shedeur was going to pick where he wanted to go. So I don't know if he sandbagged interviews after that and then retreated on that. But the Giants are one of the teams that wanted Shedeur and needed a quarterback. And he fucked that interview up so bad. So it's on Shedeur, it's on Deion, it's on everyone, really. The biggest thing that I'm going to hit on, though, this could potentially be the best thing that's ever happened to Shedeur Sanders. He's lived a life where he didn't really have to struggle for much. He grew up rich with Deion Sanders being his dad. A little privileged, kind of got whatever he wanted in a way. This is an opportunity. This humbled him. Look, if going in the 5th round draft, this humbled him. You heard him say, I just want a ball. I think he's taking the right approach here. And this could potentially be the best thing that ever happened to him because he's going to come into training camp as the 4th string, drafted behind Dillon Gabriel, who he's a better player than. This is going to light the fire up his ass, for sure. I think this could potentially be the best thing that ever happened to him. We can look back one day and he's a top 16 quarterback, and he's like, yeah, that motivated me. That pissed me off. That made me the player I am today. So don't rule out Shedeur Sanders because this is going to make or break him. I think this could be the best thing that ever happened to him, but it could also be the worst thing. It could have fractured his ego. He gives up, thinks he's better than everyone, and just kind of just washes away and with his dad's money. Or he can come out here, be pissed off that he was disrespected, and he wants to prove everyone wrong. I think Shedeur's going to be pissed off, and he's going to play pissed off. So he's going to be prepared. He's probably already working right now. I think Shedeur, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is a bad person. I just think he was a little cocky. He overplayed his hand, and it cost him. It cost him because not many teams needed a quarterback as it was. About 6 teams needed a quarterback, maybe 7. And a lot of them just took backups instead. Tyler Shough, Jalen Milroe, Dillon Gabriel, even like Will Howard and Riley Leonard. So he really, this is his moment here. Is it gonna make you or break you, bro? Because I think this could be the best thing that ever happened to you. I think this is the one moment that can finally humble you that tells you, I ain't shit. I ain't shit. I got to work. So hopefully, Shedeur, this is your moment to prove, are you going to make it in this league or are you not? Because you're going to have to work for every snap. You are the 4th string. You're going to be working with Dillon Gabriel on 3rd string snaps and reps. Or maybe mixing him with Kenny Pickett for 2s. There's not many snaps in practice, per practice. So it's going to be tough for sure for you to beat out anyone, really. But I think you're better than Dillon Gabriel. I think you're better than Kenny Pickett. So prove it. Prove it, bro. The prank call, man. Jeff Ulbrich, former Jets head coach and defensive coordinator, his son, Jax Ulbrich, prank called Shedeur and told him, sorry, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. Then hung up, acting like the Saints GM. Oh, man. These times are so funny. Apparently, many people were prank called. Tyler Warren, etc. He apologized. Multiple players got prank called. Shedeur handled it like very well. He said, nah, it happens. He's human. He said it happens. Like, we all make mistakes. He's answering everything right now. I don't know if he pivoted. I don't know if he realized that he made a big mistake being cocky, but he's pivoting and he's learning. I'm hoping he's learning from his lesson. He's handling it with mature responses. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he deserved to fall to the 5th round. And was it conspiracy? Was there something going on that we don't know as fans? Did people conspire to not take him? I call bullshit on that because when you look, how do you win in this league? 2 ways. With 2 things. Quarterback, head coach. You're telling me if there's a quarterback that you just think might have a chance in this league, that you're not taking him, you're passing on him 6 times to the 5th round like the Cleveland Browns did? They passed on him 6 times. I talked a half hour about this guy falling to the 5th round. I've never had a podcast like this before. This is unprecedented. A guy being a top 30 prospect falling 5 rounds. Man, this is crazy. Look, the Browns are an interesting offseason story for sure. If I'm Shedeur Sanders, I need to prove to everyone that I can make it in this league.